All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining our virtual community meeting this evening to learn about two exciting projects, the Bradley Boulevard Improvements Project and the Bradley Boulevard and Wilson Lane Intersection Improvements Project. Before we get started, I would like to take this opportunity to provide a quick Zoom instructional presentation for those of us that may not be familiar with the platform. Okay, so for some of us this evening, this is our first virtual meeting. We are all still learning, so please bear with us. Audio and video of tonight's presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the respective project websites tomorrow. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat box. Everyone is on mute this evening, and we ask that you please remain muted throughout the presentation, holding your questions until the question and answer phase of tonight's meeting. During the question and answer phase, you may request to speak by raising your hand. We will go over the raise hand function shortly. Your video camera is turned off by default this evening. To reduce the bandwidth of tonight's meeting, we request that you please do not turn on your video camera. Thank you. If you do not wish to speak this evening, you are welcome to ask your question via the chat. To do so, you will click Chat in the bottom menu. If you do not have a chat icon, please click More and then select Chat. A new window will appear in which you can type and send your question. If you do not wish to speak this evening, I just went over that, sorry. If you would like to speak to share your question or comment, please use the raised hand feature. To do this, you will click on Participants in the bottom menu. A new menu will appear in which you will click on the blue raised hand feature. If you do not see the blue raised hand feature, please click More and click on the blue hand. If you have dialed in by telephone this evening, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on your telephone keypad. We will then call on you and ask you to unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon in the menu at the bottom of your screen. If you have dialed in by telephone, you will press *6 to unmute yourself. If you would like to change your view of tonight's platform so that you only see the people whose cameras are on, you will click the up arrow next to the Start Video icon at the bottom of your screen. You will then select Video Settings and then click Hide Non-Video Participants. Okay, that brings us to the end of tonight's Zoom instructional presentation. And now, to introduce the Bradley Boulevard Improvements Project, I give you the project manager, John Hutchins. John?
Okay, well, thank you, Lori. Good job. I'll ask Mark Roberts if you can bring up the first slide, and I'm just going to say a few things before we go to your presentation. Lori went over quite a bit there. This is kind of new to me. I've never really done a virtual meeting, done plenty of other in-person meetings, but this is my first done this way. Don't stress, the entire meeting is being recorded. It'll be posted to our webpage, and you'll have the opportunity to either email me. I'm your point of contact. You can email me, or there'll be a digital online comment form there. And again, you don't have to worry if you don't quite get this whole computer thing. There's plenty of time to chime in later. So again, I'm the Capital Projects Manager. That's my title. I'm your point of contact for the Bradley Boulevard Improvements Project. So as you probably know from the mail out and the press release, we're covering two separate county projects here. The first one is titled Bradley Boulevard Improvements. It's Capital Improvements Project number 501733. I'm going to refer to it as the Bikeway Project. And during the comments and questions, if you could also refer to it as the Bikeway Project, it's just easier that way. The other one is the Intersection Project. That's the Bradley Boulevard Wilson Lane Intersection Improvements Project, and that's CIP number 507017. All right, so we have presentations for each of the two projects, and after which we'll open it up to questions and comments. We'll address all of your comments and questions tonight as best we can in the time allotted. We're scheduled to run till 9 o'clock. We could probably run over a little bit. And that said, and again, if you can please say regarding the bikeway project or the intersection project, if you don't, no big deal, but that'll help us because we have a team here and different people are going to respond to different questions, and that'll just be more efficient. So if you can indulge me there. And one last thing before I get into these slides and on the presentation, I'm going to ask something from all of you. It's a two-way street here, pardon the pun, but we are looking for input from you on the dimensional layout of what we're proposing. We have a side path, or what's called a shared use path, same thing more or less. That can range anywhere in our design from 8 feet to 11 feet is what we're considering. But we want to hear from you. We want to see what you people have to say about that. And the other element is the on-road bike lane. That can range in this project from 4 feet to 6 feet. So Mark Roberts is going to give you the presentation later, and you'll see a slide, and he can get into that more. But if you could just, I guess, do us a favor here, help us, work with you, and I would say if you get on the comment cards later and let us know how you feel about those dimensions, that's super important to us. Okay, Mark, introductions. Again, I'm John Hutchings. I work for DOT. I'm a capital projects manager. My consultant is Mark Roberts with Whitman Reckart and Associates. He's going to give a presentation. Later, we're going to jump over to the other project, the intersection project, and Vang Dave is my colleague in the county. He manages that project, and SDV is Incorporated is doing the design work. Michael Giuliano will present there. So with that, Mark, maybe you can go to the next slide. We'll kind of kick it off with the project overview. Okay, so this is the Bradley Boulevard project. At one time, back during the study phase, it was all one project. If you look to the left end of this aerial plan view, there's kind of a funny shaped box there around the Wilson Lane and Bradley Boulevard intersection. That is broken out to be a separate project, and we'll get to that presentation later. The balance of the project is kind of a red magenta color. It says Bradley Boulevard. It stretches from about McLean Drive down to Glenbrook Road. That's my project. That's the bikeway project. So again, we got the intersection project and we have the bikeway project. So please refer to them that way for tonight's meeting. That would be very helpful. Hopefully you're oriented. You can see to Bethesda Capitol Crescent Trail on the right side. It kind of heads into Bethesda. I think most of you can read the side roads, maybe see where you live, points of interest, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and he'll get into the nuts and bolts here. So, thank you.
Thanks, John. So I'm Mark Roberts with Whitman Reckart, and we are working on the design for this project. I was just going to give a little overview and then some of the history of the project, and then get into what we're working on now. So a little bit of the project overview, of course, in Bethesda, Maryland. And the purpose of this project is to start making up connections to some of the missing areas or gaps in the bicycle and pedestrian network. And I wanted to pull up this drawing, which we actually brought out at the last public meeting several years ago. It shows, it's a little busy, but everything in yellow is existing sidewalks. Everything in pink is existing bike lanes. And then of course, existing separated paths are in blue, like the Capitol Crescent Trail. Our project is here from Glenbrook to Wilson in combination with the intersection project. And you can see there's a gap here in any kind of network. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is connect this back up. And so, it's going to help, the project will help improve pedestrian safety, bicyclist safety, and access for all users to transit into the Bethesda Central Business District and other points nearby. A little bit more of the overview. John mentioned there'll be a shared use path or a side path. It'll be on the north side of the road. And to make sure everyone can orient correct, that's what we're calling the north side of the road, the odd numbered addresses, the wide right-of-way side of the road. There will also be on-road bike lanes. There'll be a curb and sidewalk on the south side of the road, which is the even number addresses. There will also be significant stormwater management and drainage improvements. As you're probably aware, there's flooding that occurs at some of the intersections in the corridor. There's not much of a drainage system out there to speak of today, ditch-wise or inlet and pipe system today. And so this project would be partially or would be relieving the flooding events as well as managing the stormwater from the new improvements. There would also be traffic signal reconstructions. The intersection project John mentioned will come first and reconstruct the Wilson Lane signal. And then this project would come later and reconstruct the Goldsboro and Glenbrook signals. There would also be pedestrian lighting, lower level lighting along the path, shared use path. And unfortunately, the project will impact the utility poles that are on the north side of the road today. And so we'll be working in conjunction with PEPCO on utility pole relocations and the other companies that are on the poles. And the project will also include additional crosswalks. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So next up, I wanted to go over a little bit of the project history, not too detailed, but just to give you some orientation. It really starts with the the master plan from 1990, the Bethesda Chevy Chase master plan, which called even back then for dual bikeways on Bradley Boulevard. Dual bikeways meaning shared use path on one side and then also on-road bike lanes. And then this project really got its kickoff with a petition from the neighborhood for a sidewalk. And then MCDOT got the project going. In 2000, and I should also say in 2005, there was the countywide bikeways functional master plan came out and also agreed with the earlier master plan that there would be dual bikeways on this road. And then in 2009, facility planning phase 1 began. And the project, of course, started with the petition for the sidewalk, but we go back to looking at the master plan and the bikeway master plan to see to guide the planning of this project. There were public meetings in 2009 and 10, and the phase 1 facility planning completed in 2011, and then it was recommended by the county council T&E committee to proceed on to phase 2 facility planning. That began in January of 2012, and it concluded a little over 3 years later, 2015, and it ended with a set of we call preliminary design plans around the 35% complete level. And we also had another public workshop at that time. 2015 to 2020, there was no design work on this project, the bikeway improvement project, but there were activities going on. In 2016, this project was assigned a number under the county capital improvements program, but no design started yet. In 2017, State Highway, since this is a state highway road, issued a report about the flooding and drainage challenges on this road. And again, what they identified is what we're finding, the same thing, that there's flooding that occurs and there's a lack of an existing drainage system that this project will alleviate. And then in 2018, the Bradley and Wilson intersection project was broken out with its own into the general intersection and spot improvements, capital improvements project number. And then from 2018 to 2020, each year, the South Bradley Hills Community Association submitted annual petitions to try to get this project going and off the ground. And then that brings us back to our timeline. Oh, and I also should say, sorry, in 2018, Montgomery Planning's bicycle master plan came out, very similar to the previous plans, calling for a side path which is similar to a shared use path, and conventional bike lanes on Bradley Boulevard. And then, of course, finally, in November of 2020, final design began, and the project's currently funded for design, land acquisition, utility relocations, and construction. So that brings us to current activities going on. You may have seen out there, there was some ground survey work that occurred earlier this year to update the survey that was from 10 years ago. We also did some utility designation, which means figuring out where all the utilities under the ground are to try to work around them. Next up, you'll see a few soil borings going on the north side near where the shared use path will be. But those will be done with just a hand auger, no tractor wheel vehicles, and that's to try to figure out some infiltration rates for stormwater management. Later on, we'll also be redoing the tree survey, because some trees have grown larger over the years, some have come down due to storms and things like that. So we're going to redo that. And then further down the road, we'll be doing utility test holes, which is actually, digging very small holes to figure out exactly where utilities are under the ground so that we can avoid them. Other activities going on now, stormwater management is a big part of, and drainage design is a big part of what's going on now. It's a challenge on this job, and one thing I'd like to mention is that it's a state highway road. It's been decided the state highway will be the reviewer of the stormwater design, and they will also be the ones that ultimately maintain the stormwater facilities as it's on their road. And again, as I mentioned before, State Highway did have that report that came out several years ago. And, we concur with the report, and this project would, alleviate the problems addressed in that report from State Highway. We're also obviously coordinating with the intersection project, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. And then, we're working on the roadway and shared use path design, of course. Now, this is the heart of the, one of the main reasons we wanted to come to you tonight, and that is to go over again, and this was out at the public meetings years ago, and it's been refined a little bit, and this is the typical section of the project. I'm going to look over here, sorry. And so, starting on the north side, on the odd address side, we have the wider right-of-way existing condition. And this will be the side with the shared use path and utility poles to be relocated. One feature I wanted to point out with utility poles is that the utility poles, we're going to plan to have them fit between the path and the swale, and instead of out on the outside of the path. And that will help minimize tree impacts, because utility poles need a very wide swath for clearance to the electric lines. So if the poles were to wind up on the outside, you'd have to start that clearance envelope out here and cut a lot more trees down. But if we put it here, we can take advantage of the space that the shared use path takes up. So that is one key element we're working on. Next up, you'll have a swale to handle storm drainage and stormwater management for the project, and that varies in width. And then we're onto the road, and the road would become more uniform. Today, obviously, the shoulders vary in width. You'll have two 11-foot lanes, which is down from the existing 12-foot lanes on average. And then there will be bike lanes. Now, these dimensions are from the original 5-year, from the planning, which was for a 5-foot bike lane. You'll notice this says 6. It's really a 5-foot bike lane plus the gutter, which is never counted towards a bike lane. So we just, for convenience, said that when you add them together, it's 6. And then the shared use path at 8. Then we have a sidewalk on the south side. And when we can fit it, we have green space between the curb and the sidewalk. And we can't always fit that, but where we can, we have it. Now, when I flip this, you'll see what we're considering now is changing some of these dimensions. The lanes would stay the same, The shared use path, when it was originally planned for 8, that's actually, it's definitely preferable to be up at the 10-foot 10-foot dimensions. So our proposal is to increase that from 8 to 10. And the challenges with with trying to balance the impacts that this job is going to have on the context of the neighborhood and the trees, and with the amount of stormwater management we have to get permitted, our current proposal is to take a foot from each of the bike lanes and give it to the shared use path, which would make the total amount of pavement the same. But as John mentioned, we're here to listen and to get different opinions on this. This number could really be 8, 10, or 11. This could be most likely 4 or 5 for the bike lanes. So we'd like to hear your input on that. Some other efforts that are going on. I mentioned earlier, starting to coordinate with utility companies, which includes Pepco, Verizon, and Comcast, and then others that are on the pole lines. There's also going to be some, hopefully, generally minor water and sewer adjustments, hopefully mainly to things like fire hydrants and valves. And we'll do our best to work our design around and minimize these impacts. And then same thing with Washington Gas, coordinating with them for any necessary relocations there, but trying to minimize those. And then, of course, landscape design and tree save plans to maximize the number of trees that can be saved with this project. Last, some other efforts that are coming up are the traffic design. I mentioned there'll be more crosswalks. Today, there's obviously crosswalks at the signalized intersections, and then there's also one unsignalized crosswalk today at Bright Drive. And after coordinating with State Highway and the County Traffic Division, we are looking to add 2 more unsignalized crosswalks at Durbin Road and Pembroke Road. That would split this corridor between Wilson and Goldsboro into roughly thirds to give more opportunities for crossing and getting to the shared use path. Other traffic efforts would include developing a design for the maintenance of traffic during construction, signing and marking, lighting, as I mentioned, and traffic signal design. And then before this project goes to construction, there will be a public hearing that could occur sometime next year or into the following year. So that's where my presentation ends. I'll leave it on this for a minute if you want to jot anything down. Next up, I'll be turning it over to Michael to discuss the intersection project. But if you could hold your questions for this job and the intersection job until our project till the end of his presentation. And then you'll also see John's information on the project page on the county's website if you need it there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael, and I will turn off my screen here.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Share my screen, and hopefully everybody can see that. As mentioned, my name is Mike Giuliano. I work for SCV Incorporated, and I'm working as the consultant project manager for the intersection improvement project that is located at Bradley Boulevard and Wilson Lane. So I've got a few slides here to share, to discuss with you all and share what we're doing. So as mentioned, this is a breakout project that the county brought out. It's going under as part of their spot improvement CIP. It came out from the review comments as part of the phase 1 study from the Bradley Boulevard Bikeway Facility Planning Study, which recommended left turn lanes be installed for all 4 approaches at the intersection. This is kind of reinforced in the 1990 Bethesda Chevy Chase Master Plan, which recommends adding dedicated left turn lanes to reduce delays at the intersection. So that's a little background information. First part of our project began with we conducted a traffic study. So we went out and collected traffic volumes in 2019 to prepare synchro analysis, which will help determine the operational impacts of the project. We compared that with existing conditions to determine the required length of proposed left turn lanes that were needed for each direction, and also if any additional left turn signal phasing was needed. The study, as I mentioned, began in 2019 and concluded in 2020 with SHA's approval. The bottom hand table here indicates the total turn length that was required based on the analysis, which stemmed from the volumes that was collected. Each direction was different, and that's due to the number of vehicles. The tables on the right here show the existing operational data and the proposed. This indicates the delay that was shown for each condition. In the existing condition, during the AM peak hour, there was about a 17-second delay overall for the intersection. In the PM, it was 30 seconds, so a little bit drastic. With the proposed conditions, we see a slight improvement in the AM and a more significant improvement in delay in the PM. Kind of going forward here, getting into the after getting approval on the study, we advanced our design. So the geometric improvements include widening along both 191 and 188 within the right-of-way. This more significant widening is along the north side of Bradley Boulevard. In this, we're adding dedicated left turn lanes for all approaches. We're adding in 5-foot bike lanes along Bradley Boulevard within our project limits. All the existing sidewalk out there will be rebuilt to be 5 feet wide and concrete. And in addition, I think if you're familiar with the intersection, there's a section where the sidewalk along the south side of Bradley kind of just ends. We'll be connecting that to the intersection so that pedestrians can utilize the existing pedestrian crossing. So this kind of gives you a little overview of what it'll look like along Wilson Lane. Our project limits extend. So if we're looking north, is kind of straight up on your screen here. To the west, along Wilson Lane, it's about 200 feet. To the east, towards Bethesda, it's roughly 400 feet. And along Bradley Boulevard to the north, extending about 350 feet from the intersection. And to the south, it's roughly 300 feet, basically to McLean Drive. Our improvements we're working hand in hand with the bikeway project to make room to account for the shared use path, which you can see up here. It's kind of a general location until design is started, but we are making provisions so that there is room for them just to kind of connect the shared use path all the way up to the intersection. As Mark had mentioned, there's significant drainage deficiencies in this area, and at the intersection, pretty much a non-existent infrastructure when it comes to drainage. So we will be rebuilding that. We're adding a lot of storm drain pipe and new inlets throughout the intersection and in the project limits. As part of the project, being in SHA right away, we do have to go for an SHA access management permit to do the work within their right away. So there are certain requirements when it comes to drainage and stormwater management that we have to meet. So as part of that, we are introducing and putting in one bioswale along Bradley Boulevard. So this is in between the intersection and McLean Drive on the north side. We have a couple of conveyance ditches along with 2 microbial retention facilities. So there's going to be one in the northeast corner along by McLean Drive, and then the other is located in I'll say the northeast or northwest corner of the intersection of Bradley and Wilson. And that is to meet stormwater management criteria that the state is holding us accountable for. In addition, so with every project in widening, we do have a number of utility poles that are being relocated, as well as I think there's 3 fire hydrants. There's also a new air vent main box that was installed previously that needs to be relocated that we're working with WSSC to get approvals on. Right away, for the most part, everything is within the right of way. There is a small section at the corner in the south east corner where we do need to get a perpetual easement, and that's because of drainage with the new alignment. There are a number of temporary construction easements, which means we're doing work tying into existing driveways along the south side of Bradley Boulevard and along Wilson Lane as well. So we also have some landscaping. So obviously, all areas of excavation, we will be, installing drainage and widening and all that. We're going to be putting back some ornamental and evergreen trees, shrubs, some perennial and ornamental grasses, basically replacing what is removed as part of the project. It won't match exactly. It'll be more towards SHA standards, but we will be putting back a lot of stuff to make it, look nice and not look like we've come through with construction. So the next few slides here are going to show you what it's going to look like. So this is an existing photo, Bradley Boulevard looking north towards the intersection. And then the future conditions will look like this. So you can see the left turn lane is installed and the 5-foot bike lanes. View looking south. And again, you can see on the south side there, the sidewalk is continued all the way up to the intersection connecting it. This is a view looking east along Wilson Lane coming around the curve. The new left turn lanes. And then the opposite direction looking west. Sidewalk with the left turn lanes. So that kind of concludes my presentation.
So Lori,
Okay.
okay.
I guess we're going to start with the question and answer phase. Guys, I have a number of questions. Actually, I was thinking we should probably go ahead and start with the questions that came in through the chat. I've jotted them all down. First, why does the bikeway not go to Fernwood? John?
Yeah, just trying to get my picture up there. Well, like any project, we have a finite scope. We're going by what was handed to us as far as the feasibility study, and then the limits were as they are now, except we removed the intersection improvement project. Ultimately, we'll implement all of the bike facilities for the countywide master plan, but really comes down to funding and impact to people. We can't simply build every facility out there all in 1 year. It just would be impractical, impossible, really. So, you just have to wait. And this project, it's really kind of past due. It gained life back in the early 2000s, and here we are, 2001, 2002, just getting into the getting into the design of it, and we're looking at maybe 2005, 2006 before we really get into construction. So that's where we are with it.
Okay. Next question. Why do you need to purchase private property when there is right-of-way? Is the existing right-of-way not going to be enough?
In this particular project, it should be enough. I won't speak to the intersection project. I think Michael kind of said that he's just taking a little property on the corner for some storm drain. But Mark, if you can confirm that we're taking very little fee simple, and it's really just making adjustments at driveways, maybe on the sidewalk side, or maybe you can speak to that a little more directly. So.
Yeah, there's very little fee simple right of way. It is primarily temporary easements to tie driveways in, mainly on the sidewalk side. That is a good characterization. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Can the electrical wires be buried and utility poles eliminated?
They certainly can be, and I've done that in another project, but upfront is cost, hugely expensive. We have other reasons not to do it. We have to give consideration to the stormwater management we're proposing. It's a very narrow corridor when you think about it. It's 100 feet of right of way, We've got the roadway, we've got these multimodal transportation facilities, the shared use path, the on-road bike lanes, probably bioswales, the poles, and existing utilities that have to get moved out of the way. So if that's what people want, it's really more of a budgeting question. That can all be done, but it's much more of a challenge and much more costly. I would ask you to, contact your elected officials and say, we would like this here. The other thing we have to look at, whenever we do something to improve an area, the adjacent area says, well, how come they got that and we didn't? So we have to play fair to everybody. It's a balance. So I hope you see it that way. But again, it really comes down to funding.
Okay. Wouldn't it be safer to have a double wide bike lane on one side with the bicycles going in both directions in that wider lane?
Mark, I don't know if you've got your bike expert there that could address that, or if you could address that one.
Oh, so you're saying on road, that I guess that's for on road. Okay. Because we do have the two-way but shared use path on the one side with two-way bicycling. So I guess I'm not sure.
I guess they're saying on roads, two-way, and then eliminate it on the other side. I'm not quite.
Okay. I'm not quite sure.
If you want to, again, we will have this documented and you can send it in. We're going to study all of your recommendations. Again, we're undecided on a lot of this. Back when they studied this, things have changed in terms of our standards for bike facilities. So we appreciate those kind of comments, and maybe we don't have a good answer right now tonight, but we'll look at that. Okay.
Okay. What is the snow removal policy for shared use paths?
Same as sidewalks, 3 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have nothing to say
and
about that.
Yes, and the rule is that you need to have it shoveled within 24 hours of the end of the snowfall, or you also can wait until after the road has been plowed and then do it thereafter.
Lori, you would know that much better than I do as the manager of the bikeway program. So thank you.
Yes. When was the traffic study performed for these projects?
Was that, Mark, 2011? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I don't know what we can have Michael chime in, but ours was
2011, right?
2011. Okay, Michael, do you have anything more recent on that?
Yeah, so for the intersection improvement project, we collected new traffic data in 2019, and our study was then approved in 2020. So all before the COVID-19 pandemic brought about its thresholds to traffic in the area. So it is based on volume data pre-pandemic.
Ours was looking back 2011 study, 15,000 ADT. Is that close to anything that you might have, or did you not measure that for Bradley?
Is that a question to Michael?
Yeah, Michael, I'm sorry if you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark, can you repeat that?
I guess John's asking how your ADT compared to ours. We're at about 14.5.
I'd have to go back. I don't have the exact numbers.
Okay.
Okay.
We can look into.
No, they were pretty consistent with historical data.
Okay.
It's mainly because of the area that we're in and not a
Right.
ton of growth essentially for traffic volume.
Okay. We can take a look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are drainage issues only being worked on at the intersection, or will they be looked at throughout the entire bikeway project?
Mark, you want to?
Yeah, there'll be the entire length of this bikeway project. We're looking at drainage improvements. So today there's not much of a drainage system to speak of. The road was built 100 years ago. So, and with this project, there will be open section, which means, the swale on the north side, and then a closed system, piping and inlets on the south side. So that'll alleviate the drainage issues.
Great. Do I need to disclose the Bradley bikeway plan if I sell my home?
Not sure about that one.
We know
I
that.
don't know.
Lori, do you know?
I don't know, although, I mean, I
We know,
probably would just as a courtesy, but I don't know that you have to. I don't believe you have to.
yeah. I know in terms of adding sidewalk and those facilities, there's no special tax assessment. And I think looking at some documents from our the director of DOT had earlier, I was checking that out, and the property values tend to go up, you know, because of the safety element. But again, no special assessments. So.
Okay, let's go to some raised hands, and then we'll go back to the chat questions. Let's see, we have Mark's iPad. Mark, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is Mark Fitterman. We live on Old Chester Road between Bradley Boulevard and Durban. And I noted that you were kind enough to include a photograph of our corner in your presentation. And if you went to our corner today, you would see just as bad a flooding. And I wanted to make sure that the flooding will be gone when this is done. And I'd like to know when that will happen. And the other question I have is what happens to the ride-on bus stops that are on the other side of Bradley Boulevard?
So I think there's a question for me, John, and my cohort, Jason, who I'll introduce. John, do you want to talk schedule first?
Well, yeah, construction right now, the funding is 2025. And what do we estimate? About 2 years to build this thing?
At
do
least.
it all in one phase?
2+.
2+. Okay. So, you know, it's not tomorrow.
No,
And
so-
close.
It's not, so it's 2027, you said?
Well, 2025, 2024, I think we're going to start moving utilities per the current schedule. That's going to take a while, probably at least 6 months to a year, depending. We can't control Verizon and Pepco. They'll get out there. It will give them a year, 2024. Then we come out with this project when they're done, 2025, 2026, maybe even into 2027. It's a little early to say. I can't quite nail it down, but that's the general time frame, sir.
And how bad will the construction be for people exiting our street onto Bradley?
Mark, are we going to maintain one lane at all times? Is that limited hours, that kind of thing? Or is it?
Yeah, there'll be 2 lanes open during all peak hours, and the works. There will probably be flagging, but it'll probably be from 9 to 3. That's typically what state highway permits, and we have to go by state highways hours they would allow. And yeah, we would be looking to develop a maintenance of traffic plan to keep all the intersections safe and proper sight distance when you're out trying to turn left or right. Yeah.
So it'll be similar to the problems we're experiencing on Bradley now with some kind of sewer thing that they're doing between where we live and Fernwood.
Well, I don't want to say that we'll be the same as that project, but we'll definitely be working to make it a safe, work zone for motorists and the workers and all. But that does remain to be designed. That's one of the things we'll be working on in the next couple of years.
Thank you. And what happens to the bus stops?
So the bus stops. So this project integrates well with those bus stops. They're all going to stay. Well, actually, I mean, I can't say that for 100% sure. Maybe now that there'll be sidewalks, maybe Ride-On will consider consolidating stops. John, I don't know if we've talked.
No, but there's no plan to relocate them at this time.
No, yeah, and so the new sidewalk on one side and shared use path on the other will tie to each of those bus stops, and they'll be integrated back in. And then I guess, Jason, if you're on, do you mind talking? I've talked enough about drainage. That's not my expertise. So Jason, if you want to talk a little about, the flooding on this road,
Yeah.
and what will we be doing about it? Can you?
Sure. And hopefully you can hear me okay here.
We can, yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
So the intersection of Old Chester and Bradley, is obviously pretty substandard. There's been an attempt to cut various drainage swales off of the end of the concrete curb on Old Chester, somehow get it back out to Bradley. It's really not working. The primary deficiency is just that there isn't a closed drainage system. So the bikeway project proposes a full drainage system through there. Currently, the plan is to have 2 large inlets on Old Chester to intercept water before it gets to these areas that don't drain. Then have redundant inlets in the grassed areas. The piping system would run north to the intersection project. Now, the intersection project stops at McLean, and so it's not currently proposed as part of that project to extend the drainage system, but that is the system that would the bikeway project would hook into, and it's a fairly robust collection of inlets and pipes at Old Chester to intercept that drainage, because it's obviously very substandard.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Barbara Rosenbaum. Barbara, can you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you for this meeting. Wanted to...
Barbara, we're having trouble hearing you. Can you speak up a little?
Okay, I
Oh,
wanted
great.
to, I moved. I wanted to zero in on the pedestrian issue. You've talked a lot about traffic studies. I live on Bradley, 3 houses from the intersection of Goldsboro and Bradley. And I am very concerned that, of course, this be a safe road, but I don't observe myself the pedestrian traffic that would justify another sidewalk on the south side. And I think the data needs to be released, and also the criteria that you use to determine that we needed to have an additional sidewalk.
Okay, thank you, Barbara.
I guess one thing I would say about that issue is, I mean, the road obviously carries so many vehicles that folks on the south side of the road, whether in the side streets or along Bradley itself on the south side, without a sidewalk, they would be desiring to get over to the shared use path. They're going to without a sidewalk, they'd have to be crossing Bradley, wherever, without a crosswalk probably. But, the volume is so heavy that, together with county council, it was decided to add the sidewalk. And then as far as the demand, you can't see as many pedestrians out there now because there's no facility, but, with that network I had showed, there is a pretty big gap in the network. So we're hoping and really feel strongly that there's going to be a big amount of activity once the project's built, that there's latent demand. But
Could you be sure to put more speed cameras along Bradley? Because I think that is going to be a major issue. I mean, as it is, cars speed, and I think they're going to be encouraged to do that. And so I think that is an important improvement that would need to be made. In addition, my husband, Robert,
Oh, Barbara, we're having trouble hearing you again.
Is it okay if my husband, Robert Feldhune, asks a question?
Of course.
Thank you. Going back to the question of justification of the sidewalk, we live at 5310 Bradley. As Barbara said, 3 houses up from Goldsboro, and between Goldsboro and Pembroke, there are, I think, 5 houses. There already is a 5-foot shoulder right in front of our house, which is just about what you're talking about for the width of the drive lane and the bike lane. The questions that come up are about the need for a sidewalk in front of our house. I thought you were talking in your project about a cross lane from Pembroke, and you already have a crossing from around where Goldsboro comes into Bradley. The questions that the justification for a sidewalk on the south side, the justification for a sidewalk on Bradley originated from the request in the South Bradley Hills Citizens Association, and that was only on the north side. We would appreciate if you would include requests that came from citizens on the south side, or I guess you'd call it the west side of Bradley, for a sidewalk on the south side of Bradley. The other thing is, another problem is, I gathered, not from the bikeway presentation, but from your other presentation, that the sidewalks will be concrete. And again, you also pointed out that that will require snow removal to be completed by the homeowners in whose sidewalk is in front of. Is the homeowner also responsible for all liability that would occur on the sidewalk in their front yard?
Lori, I don't know if you have.
Yeah, Lori.
Yeah, so if somebody slipped and fell in your front yard, then
On the sidewalk.
on the sidewalk, yes. I mean,
Well,
they
it's public
would
right of
sue
way,
your
they're not in his
insurance
yard.
company.
But
Hopefully they wouldn't sue
the
anybody, but
homeowner
if
is
they,
responsible. Is that correct? The homeowner, once the sidewalk is built on their front yard, they are responsible for cleaning the snow, as you
Right.
indicated, and they
Mhm.
are, and the homeowner's insurance
right,
will take the liability. So the homeowner is being asked to assume some responsibility, whether
that
you
is, that is the
whether you
law of
want
the
to
county.
utilize it or
Lori, let me chime in here. I mean, it's more of a question for the county attorneys. I understand where he's coming from. If it's
Mhm.
my house and I don't properly shovel it in the correct amount of time and somebody slips and falls on the ice, is it on me? I've never heard of such a case, but I don't want to go on record as saying that can't be. That's a question. I'll just have to divert the question to county attorneys and maybe we can get back to them on that. But we'll just limit this discussion to say that our county policy countywide is 3 feet. And what is it, within 24 hours, Lori, or is it?
It's within 24 hours of the end of the snowfall or after the road has been plowed.
Yeah, beyond that, any liability on you? We can't address that at this meeting, sir. I just, I wish I could. That's not something I've heard of. Lori, let me just ask you,
Yeah.
have you heard that, what about enforcement? Is, somebody, I know in my neighborhood, I live in, in the area, and I just.
They don't patrol. No,
Yeah,
they don't patrol looking for unshoveled
Right.
sidewalks.
I've never heard of anybody, getting a ticket for,
No,
So
no.
to go beyond that and say you're liable, anybody can get a lawyer and sue you because for anything, I guess, there's some people just happy that way. Maybe not the answer you want to hear, sir, but that's all we can tell you. I don't want to waste any more of your time, but pretend we know the answer. So.
Okay, let's go to William Negley. William, can you unmute, please?
Yes, hi, my name is William Negley. I live at the intersection of Durbin and Bradley. Thank you all so much for showing up to take arrows. I know that's got to be an enjoyable part of your role here. I had sort of 2 questions, topics. The first, Mark, I'm probably one of the few people that have looked at those tree studies and, the right of way on the north side and the south side. And you talked about how it appeared that it was not going to be necessary to fee simple land away. But then you indicated what I had seen on the study, which is that on the south side, it looked like there was a much greater temporary easement. And I'm assuming that's the case because on the north side, there's already a much greater right-of-way sort of band in there. I would just express that, you know, my concern about that is wonderful that it's temporary, wonderful that we're going to quote unquote get it back. But if in this temporary period, there's a whole bunch of destruction to the land and the trees that we're ultimately going to get back. And to be clear, I want the sidewalk, I want this project, I want all of this, but it seems like, you know, I get not my front yard, but there's almost a disproportionate impact to the nature on the actual property of the south side owners because of the way that this sort of pan shakes out.
I don't know, Mark, you want to?
Yeah, I guess I can say the way the design is coming about is to try to work our way from the south side across, knowing that we're adding width to, you know, to the total corridor because of the shared use path and swale. So on the south side, what we're really trying to do, well, first of all, we're trying to set the road and sidewalk so that the new sidewalk falls within existing right of way, and that's why, you know, we're really not looking at fee simple little strips of fee simple land from every property on the south side. It's because the sidewalk, the back of it's actually going to be out into the existing right of way. But then, you know, because we're adding the sidewalk, which raises the grade 8 inches, you know, and then at driveways, the grade gets raised about 3 inches because the curb gets depressed. But with all that, we wind up being, you know, not at the same elevation, I'll say, or not at the same height as your existing driveway at the right of way. So that's what triggers the, you know, the temporary easement so that we can extend or to tie your driveway back in. I guess. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, so I've never been through this. We just moved into this house about a year ago. So I take it that this is not just coming in and sort of clear cutting 20 feet. You know, I mean, it's looking towards the individual lot and saying, okay, this is what we've got to do here. How do we sort of optimize this for everybody?
We're definitely looking at features, I'll say, like along the south side in particular. You know, if there's some pretty built up features that you have, we're you know, I can't say we'll never impact, and I'm speaking for all of the south side properties. Yeah. I can't say that we're not hitting anything along the whole south side, but we're really looking to try to hold that line on the south side and work our way across, get as close to it as we can, knowing that we don't want to like push well onto the north side. So we're trying to, you know, hold that line on the south side, but, you know, there will be some impacts. We are considering, things along that right of way.
And then just, sorry, quick second question.
Yeah.
I will not pretend to speak for the residents of Durban, but I will speak to having a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and living on Durban and the speed of that road. I've sort of heard incidentally over the years, there's been a lot of discussion around that, but because that's kind of a major emergency thoroughfare that it can be limited in what can be done about that. However, the crosswalk crossing Bradley at Durban, I will simply say, if that had the impact of slowing traffic down, I would consider that an added benefit. Slowing traffic down, coming into Durban, and just, on Bradley, period.
Yeah, I would say that crosswalk with the, fluorescent signs and markings probably could have some sort of impact. You know how it's difficult to get traffic slowed down, especially on a state highway where we're limited, we can't use things like speed humps. But yeah, you're right. The crosswalk could have some benefit to that.
Because unsignaled only means there's not a traffic signal. You're still going to have flashing lights or something along those lines for the crosswalk.
we're definitely going to have, you know, high visibility signs and markings. We've considered in the past, John, you know, some flashing lights. It might, you know, I don't know if we're 100% on that. That's probably further down the road of the design, but it's definitely something we can consider. Some, you know.
Mark, just
Just echo the previous comment on, if the traffic doesn't slow down, I think these crosswalks are irrelevant. Because if somebody's going 60 miles an hour when they should be going 35 and they probably should be going 25, you know, having stripes on the street is going to be nearly irrelevant. I'll stop talking. Thank you so much.
thank you, William. Just a quick follow-up, Mark or Michael. I don't know if you could speak to the narrowing of the vehicular lanes from 12 feet to 11 feet. Do you think that will have any mitigation on traffic speeds or no effect? I don't know if you're aware of any more recent studies on that. Anybody can comment on that?
I mean, I'll start and then maybe Michael can follow up, but I mean, I would say, you know, the 12 to 11 will have some effect. And then, you know, we're also looking at high visibility markings, signage as appropriate. And then, you know, landscaping, putting landscaping back along the border. These are the things that on a state highway like this, that, you know, it does have a fairly high traffic volume. So we can't be doing things like speed humps, but everything we can do, we're definitely looking at on this job.
Yeah, the county won't allow anything, an arterial to have speed humps, you know, it's just
Right.
more for residential type. Michael, do you have anything you can add to that, or is that about it?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I will add is that, you know, as part of the intersection improvement project, we are minimizing to the very minimum that SHA will allow us to put on the roadway. 11-foot travel lanes and a 10-foot left turn lane. 5 is the bare minimum. These are requirements from SHA. We can't go any lower than that to minimize it. So the reducing the travel lane width does have an impact on speeds. That is kind of a proven thing, and it is we are putting in the bare minimum. So it's kind of
all right. I guess we can go to the next question then.
Okay. Next, we have David Scott. David, can you unmute yourself?
I just did. Thank you. David Scott. I live on Bradley, but closer to Huntington Parkway, but I ride down Bradley often to get to the Crescent Trail. And I find that the south side is the most dangerous part of Bradley because it's narrow. And even where there's a line, the side where it's supposed to be a bike lane is rough. I've actually fallen on that area because it's just so badly paved. I think getting a smooth side, like on the north side of Bradley, is definitely needed. I will say that I've ridden bikes in New York City and Paris, and they often have a concrete barrier between the bikes and the road. I'm not sure if that's part of the planning. That certainly would discourage the way some drivers go, and it would also not encourage those of us who have to get a little bit safer to actually cross over, forcing the drivers to go across the double yellow line. So that would be something that I would recommend. And the last thing I'd like to say, and I won't continue asking questions, the last thing I'd say is that crosswalks are definitely necessary, and even lighted crosswalks like they have on Tuckerman, where you can, you know, press a button and get it to flash. Not that people will stop, but at least it puts them in a position where you can put up a camera and get them. I think are definitely necessary. I live near Huntington, and there's no crosswalk at Huntington and Bradley. And I think probably the county has to wait for someone to be killed before they'll put a crosswalk there. It's a very important intersection. We need more crosswalks, period, and people have to observe them. That's all I'm going to say. Is there any effort to make a barrier between the side roads, you know, I mean, the bike paths and the main road?
It's not currently in the plan. We have talked about it. Again, right now we're at where we left off in 2015 with 30% plans, and the council approved, you know, what they approved, and we were going to move forward with that. We got our marching orders. And then it came to what we met with some bike groups, WABA, and talked to a few people. We talked to park and planning, and you know, things have evolved. That's certainly something to consider. Again, for everything you do, there's unintended consequences. You know, we have stormwater management to take care of. We have pervious areas. We have people that live along the corridor. We have to be sensitive to all these things. So, you know, I wish we could provide everything to everybody. You know, it's almost impossible, but we appreciate your comments, David, and we'll give it due consideration. So.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Marion Balsam. Marion?
Hi, I'm Marion Balsam. I live on Bean Court, and I have two comments or concerns. One is for those people who need to exit their driveways onto Bradley Boulevard, or else even just coming in from the side streets, especially during rush hour. The only thing that enables us to get onto Bradley Boulevard is the break that we get because people have to stop for the light at Wilson Lane. And I'm concerned that if there is no light at Wilson Lane, it's going to be a very difficult mad dash to exit any of the crossroads or driveways onto Bradley.
There's still going to be a traffic signal at Wilson Lane.
Absolutely.
No change, just rebuilt, reconstructed new.
Reconstructed.
Oh, okay, thank you. The other comment that I have, you had mentioned before that you wanted to be fair and do something for other people if you're doing something for the bikers along Bradley Boulevard. Not burying the utilities when that whole area is going to be dug up is really missing an opportunity. And that's an opportunity that would benefit the entire neighborhood, not just the people who travel on Bradley Boulevard. So I would put in my vote for burying the utilities, even if it is costly. I think it's a mistake not to. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Sandra. Sandra?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
thank you.
I guess my question is, John addressed the timing on the bikeway, but I did not hear any definitive timing on the Bradley intersection project. I live on the south side of Bradley and I'm impacted by the intersection project, and I've had people coming out to tell me how much they're going to pay us to rent back our land so they can park all the equipment. And they said they'd be starting in November. So Michael, what is the timing on the intersection project?
When does it start?
When does it start and when does it end?
Don't hang up.
Can't speak to when it's going to finish, but and even to the start. So we are working through getting our final permit approvals with the hopes of starting construction here in November of this year. It is scheduled to take about 3 to 6 months to complete, I think.
What did you said, 3 to 6 months?
That is correct.
So if we have equipment, if they're renting our property to park heavy duty equipment, that will only be for 3 to 6 months, not for 3 to 5 years?
It certainly shouldn't take 3 to 5 years, no.
Okay, so it's not going to tie in up, it's not going to go on up until 2025 when they start the bikeway project. It's too.
No, we should be long done before the bikeway project comes into construction.
Okay, so they'll work over the winter. That they're not going to stop in the winter. If they start in November, that seems strange timing.
No, yeah, no. A lot of the work will be done through. It can be done through like the drainage improvements and the inlets and all that can go in during the winter. The only thing that is weather dependent is when you put down the final surface course for the pavement and pavement markings. Those things tend to be done in the warmer months. So that's why it'll most likely last from at least the fall into the spring of the 2022.
And why are they needing space on the south side of Bradley for the equipment when there's all the right of way on the north side? Can you
So
address that?
I think we are, and I think this may be, you live on the south side, so we do need temporary construction easements. And that is mainly because we need to reconstruct your driveway entrance to tie into the new alignment. I don't know that we'll be, the contractor will be putting equipment and construction vehicles on your side of the road when there is all the space on the north side. That seems a little odd to me, but that's more of a contractor, the actual contractor will determine all that.
Okay, that's what the adjuster told us, so maybe I could have a side conversation with you about that.
It might be a side conversation with the adjuster because I don't think that the contractor will be leaving equipment on your side of the road when there's all the right of way on the northbound side.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Michael, the November schedule, is that for utility relocations to start, or is that the actual, the intersection?
As far as I know, the utility pole relocation should have already started. I know we are working to getting Pepco out there in order to relocate the utility poles faster and sooner. I was under the impression that work had already started, but I will follow up with the Bang. I don't think he's actually on the call tonight, so.
Okay.
But yeah.
No, I'm on the call. Mike, sorry, I'm on the call. And utility work is not started yet. Pepco is have to power up a station, so it will start around August and or September, mid-September.
Okay. I guess, Sandra, we're good with you, I guess. Your hand's still up. I guess we go to Victor.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Victor Cuscio. Victor?
Are you muted?
Victor, can you unmute?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is this Zoom session being recorded?
It is, yes.
Is it going to be made available?
Yes, it'll be posted on the website tomorrow.
All right. My question is, I live on Bradley. If Bright Drive crossed Bradley, it would go into my driveway. I'm now faced with traffic from 3 directions and pedestrians, a crosswalk, a new pedestrian warning sign. The cars don't slow down. Are you going to do anything to slow the cyclists down? Because, and the people that turn left off of Bradley onto Bright, the traffic does not stop behind them and it comes onto the shoulder. So there's more going on at this particular intersection than other intersections. And what accommodations are going to be made for safety? I heard you say earlier you can't put speed bumps. Well, speed bumps would be the best thing to slow some people down. And I don't care what the state's laws are, possibly they have to be reconsidered because you don't have enough traffic lights and you don't have any way of controlling the speed of the cyclist. They have to put a policeman down on the bike paths with speed guns to slow them down. So what accommodations are going to be made for all of these changes to be done safely? And I haven't heard much yet to speak to slowing the traffic down or slowing the cyclist down. Thank you.
I don't know, Mark. Maybe I'm stuck with this one. He makes good points. I'll just simply say, not in the scope of this project to try to slow the cars down. We're simply putting in bikeways and pedestrian facilities for the purpose of safety. Just looking at Bright, where it comes out, I can see what you're I think that's the top of the hill, I think. I'm not sure than the profile. Thinking of sight distance. Anyway.
Bottom of the hill.
Is it the bottom of the hill? Okay. I remember trying to think of where the drainage, okay. So I don't know, Mark, what can we say about the speed of vehicles and the speed of bicyclists?
Yeah, I guess I'd start with, because of the traffic volumes are heavy in the nature of this being a state highway, we can't do things like speed bumps. But I guess like we were saying earlier, the things we can do, we will do, such as the narrower lanes. The shoulder will actually wind up being narrower on the north side than it is today. So when someone's turning left onto Bright Drive after this project is installed, that will deter most, maybe not the most aggressive driver at cutting around a left turning vehicle, because the shoulder is only going to be 4 or 5 feet wide. So probably most people will now wait for left turners, but it depends. You could get the most aggressive person to cut around. And then I guess as far as bicycle traffic, the higher speed bicyclists will most definitely stay on road on the bike lanes. Like you see them today going on the shoulder. And then the shared use path will attract, lower speed cyclists, families, things like that, that are more comfortable on that road. So, I mean, I guess that's the way we would see the bicycle traffic splitting themselves up here.
So the on-road, whether it's a vehicle or a bicycle, they're the faster element, and then the recreational people going slower are on his side of the road, I guess.
Yes.
And then we'll call him the north side. It's not our policy about the, Mark, you and I, but the speed humps, speed bumps. I don't know if you or Michael or anybody in your crew can recall. It's been a long time, but didn't that evolve from fire and rescue type of policy? Like they didn't want an ambulance, having to slow down, trying to get somebody to the hospital or get to a fire. Am I wrong here? Where did that come from? Just my own curiosity. Do you recall where that came from? I thought it was a safety concern.
I think it's partially emergency vehicles, partially that there's bus traffic on this road and buses and the comfort of all the passengers using that. And we want to attract passengers to mass transit. It's not good. And then just the sheer volume of vehicles, on this road, it would, if there was a speed hump here, who knows what would happen with traffic?
Yeah,
push around.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess maybe a speed camera, if that was implemented, that obviously slows traffic. Good comments. It's just, it's a tough situation to satisfy all demands here in terms of pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicles, the residents. So anything else on that, Mark?
Again, we'll consider also the higher type crosswalk treatments. It's something that will evolve with our design. We could be using, like someone had mentioned earlier, the push button with a flashing, or even there's the rapid flashing signal, yellow lights. So we can look at that because it's unsignalized.
Now, does SHA have to approve that use of that?
When
the permit?
During planning, we talked to them about these, and yes, they would have to be involved in that decision. They were pretty receptive to the idea back then, so okay. They're we can continue looking at that. So
let's definitely keep that on the table.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, next we have Garrett Hennigan. Garrett?
Good evening. How are you all doing? Thank you all so much, first off, for holding this update. It's been quite a while. Good to hear work is back started. My name is Garrett Hennigan. I'm with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. I grew up near Bethesda, for what that's worth. And I just wanted to throw in a few comments. I've been hearing a lot of concerns from residents who seem to be finding every reason they can to say this is a bad idea. So I wanted to provide a few reasons why I think this project and the motivations behind it are actually a good idea and what's really needed for Bethesda. First off, there is a question of who will use this street. And I just wanted to point out that Bradley Boulevard in the context here has bus stops. It's not a particularly frequent bus, but there are bus stops there. And none of those bus stops have a sidewalk that connects to them. People walking in the street is unsafe, period. People have talked about speeding here. The road is signed at 30 miles an hour, but we know that people go 35, 40, 45 faster. Separating out different uses is a proven strategy for increasing safety. Narrowing the lanes will absolutely, and removing the part of the shoulder will absolutely have a positive effect on slowing down drivers. Would recommend that, part of the conversation should be a lower speed limit. Montgomery County is testing out in some neighborhoods 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in parts of North Bethesda at this point. I think 25 would be a great step to both send a signal to drivers that we want them to be driving slower here, combined with some changes to the road that encourage it. But on to biking. There's a notion that that not many people bike here, and I think there's a good reason for that. If you consider yourself, if you are a person who has ridden a bike before, you probably, most of you, will look at Bradley Boulevard and say, I have no interest in riding a bike there because of the way it's designed. There's no safe place to do it. There's not even a sidewalk. But what we know is that when you build a space that encourages bicycling, that creates a separated space where a person of lesser, experience can give it a try, they will. And that looks like kids, and that looks like women, and that looks like older adults. I wanted to point out that this area is just about a mile from downtown Bethesda, from a metro, and it's just about a mile from two different schools. Both Pyle and Whitman are just about a mile away from Bradley. When the county did analysis of Pyle and Whitman, they created what's called a bike shed, looking at the percent of residents who live within about 2 miles of those schools who can actually get to those schools on what they call a low stress bikeway. So that's streets that are low stress that would be comfortable for most people to ride. For Pyle, 15% of residents within 2 miles can actually get there on a low stress bikeway. For Whitman, it's 1%. Bradley Boulevard fits absolutely within that 2 miles of those schools, and making Bradley a low stress bikeway actually hugely increases the number of residents who are able to get there safely on a bike. So I wanted to bring that up. I appreciate that we're talking about possibly changing the where the pavement's allocated for a wider side path, and potentially focusing on those kids so they can safely get to school. Making that a great side path really matters there. I'm almost done. Actually, I will leave it there. Just want to thank you all for this. That's it.
Thank you, Garrett. Let's see. Next, we have iPad 97. I don't know who that is, but if you could unmute, please.
Yes, hear me?
Oh, great, yes.
Oh, thanks. I'm Richard Hoy. Thank you very much for this presentation. It's really been a fine presentation. My context is I am a lifelong resident here. My family house is near 7 Locks and Bradley. So I grew up traveling on Bradley as a child, and then as a new driver, driving too fast as a new driver for many years. I'm a retired firefighter, and so I've been on many rescues, car crashes on Bradley and the side streets in the community, along with other incidents. And I've been car free for 25 years. So I travel by bike and bus on Bradley and the many other streets around here. So I see this project as being wonderful. It's taken too damn long. 20 years is too long. It's disenfranchised people by not being built. And the original plan was for a dual bikeway and multi-use path. And that was a bikeable shoulders and multi-use path on the side. not bike lanes. That comment came in about 2010. And at that time, it came in because some of the politicians there made a deal to cut out the multi-use path and to provide bike lanes that would conceivably work for all the bikers. Well, we know that doesn't provide the opportunities and safety that is needed for the entire spectrum of people who might bike, and that the side path is essential, and a good side path, a 10-foot wide side path. So I'm happy to see that, and I am hopeful that you all will take the advice to allow the confinement of Wilson as much as possible to reduce speed, and to allow bikers to use it as well, which I believe are bikeable shoulders of 4 feet. The bike lane conveys a misinformation to many people who don't understand them, both bikers and drivers. The bike lane is not where a biker is or should be in making a left turn. And going high speed down a hill on Bradley, the biker needs more space than a 4 or 5 foot wide bike lane to operate his bicycle. So he needs to be in the lane of travel. So we need to make our design congruent with the practice that will actually occur, the safe practice that will occur here. So I'm really encouraging a 4-foot bikeable shoulder and a 10-foot multi-use path. And I'm also concerned about, as a driver, cyclist, and firefighter, I'm concerned about the speed of traffic. I think it's a major failure not to include traffic calming in this project, in any project that encourages people to be in the roadway space as shared users. So anything we can do to reduce the traffic speed, I encourage you to do within the scope of the project. I look forward as a resident to the property value increase and the amenity that this will provide. I live on Old Georgetown Road at Lucas, near the synagogue, and these projects are projects that people talk about when they sell their house, because they want to advertise the amenities that are available close by. So I think it's a value to adjacent property owners, as well as greater community, that we have a wonderful facility. And if it costs money, well, I'd rather it be spent here than someplace else. Spend it on me and increase my property value. As a firefighter, I certainly would appreciate that, because I live by what the market does as a pensioner. And so thank you for the project. I really think that the traffic calming and speeds is the missing element here in the project. But otherwise, let me help. I'll dig for you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Vilna Vanilla Kenny.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good evening. I'm really happy about this project, and Lee, one of my neighbors, has been talking about it for a long time, and I really support this project. I don't drive because of my eyesight, so I have to depend on public transportation and walking, and I have done that for a long time. And for example, when I went to work, I had to take the bus, but because of the high traffic, I usually left really early, like about 6:40, so that I could get the bus at 6:48. I live on Bradley near Durbin, and so I really would appreciate if this project goes through, and it goes. I know it's taking a long time, but it would help for a lot of the pedestrians that are around here, and you see a lot of pedestrians and walking down. Downtown Bethesda, for example, I have to take usually the path down Honeywell, and I don't remember the street anyway. But I hate to go down Bradley because it's scary. And also when you go down Bradley to Wilson, it's really scary. And so I really appreciate it. And I also see the bicycles, people that ride the bikes. And I always feel like, oh my God, I know they are going, but somebody's going to hit them. And so I really also appreciate if the speed limit were to decrease to 25. People are not paying attention, and accidents happen. But anyway, thank you so much. I enjoyed this meeting, and I hope successful this project. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that is all of the residents who have expressed an interest in speaking. And now let's go back to the chat. We have a question from Helen Hernandez. Can you clarify plans for Bradley Boulevard and Fairfax area? And what is the timeline for that section?
That's east of us, John.
Yeah, beyond the scope. Really
Okay,
can't
so-
speak to that.
Okay. Will the swale shift the water from the intersection to individual yards?
As a practice, we don't do that, but Jason, maybe you can be more specific.
Sure. So the swale we keep referring to is we're referring to it as a bioswale. It's just a stormwater management ditch, really, and that will be serviced by a pipe drainage system that will run all the way along the east side of Bradley Boulevard, and so that will collect runoff from the swales. It'll then be piped to the south. So the short answer is no. It will collect. Swales will collect and then discharge into the pipe drainage system and not to the lots.
Okay, great. Next question from Macon. Are there plans to extend the path north beyond Wilson? And will the sidewalks on Wilson allow ride-on bus riders to have a safe place to walk to reach Aberdeen at Bradley?
Yeah, I'll just defer to the master plan, the countywide bicycles master plan. I think it's all available online, and I think it goes all the way up to Persimmon Tree Road or beyond that to
Yeah, it goes to Persimmon Tree Road, which is the end of Bradley Boulevard. So master plan has this same section we're talking about from Persimmon Tree all the way through our area and all the way to Wisconsin. So actually, also I looked up on my map, to address the two questions ago, at Fairfax. So the master plan does show this dual bikeway system all the way north and all the way south to Wisconsin. But again, our scope is just Wilson to Glenbrook, so those would have to be in the future.
Great, thank you. Next question from Dell. What does the county plan to prevent the surrounding neighborhood side streets from becoming shortcuts for motorists attempting to avoid traffic slowdowns during the construction?
Mark, you're going to provide a maintenance of traffic plan. Is that one of the considerations?
Yeah, there'll be the maintenance of traffic plan, and again, State Highway has restrictions on hours of when lane closures can occur. Typically 9 to 3. It varies. It could be different than that. I don't know, Michael, have you heard anything specific about hours, like lane closure hours on Wilson or Bradley from State Highway, since you're further along?
I haven't heard anything specific, but other than the fact that we'll be held, our work will be done off peak. So
Yep.
9 and 3.
Usually 9 to 3 on these
yeah,
type of
9 to 3.
roadways.
Mhm.
So hopefully during those peak hours, there won't be that demand to cut through on the neighborhood streets, is what I would say.
Okay, great. Next, with reference to the intersection project, will there be a period of time where people who live on Bradley might not be able to pull out of their driveways due to the sidewalk construction?
It's a good question, but no. We've made provisions in our MOT plans for the contractor to maintain driveway entrances. So he'll have to construct portions of it while maintaining access to the property. So all property owners will have access throughout construction.
Awesome. Okay, for the bikeway projects, will the poles be dramatically taller or larger as they appear now?
They won't be, they definitely won't be dramatically taller. I think I can rule that out. But will they be the exact height they are today? That I don't think we can promise one way or another. Just getting started with coordination with Pepco. I guess, John, do you have anything?
No, I just echo what you're saying. Pretty much what you see out there today, just relocated. Definitely no plans to make them any taller, but
they could wind up a little taller.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten there yet as far as
on a case-by-case basis, depending on how they have to design the pole system. So
right,
but nothing dramatic.
And Michael, you're not and your end at the intersection, you're pretty much the same. I think you've got a couple of poles there that you're relocating.
Yeah, there's a couple of poles, and I think Pepco is putting back roughly the same height of what's actually out there. So okay. Plans to go any taller.
Okay. Next question. What does shared use mean? What are the use cases for a shared use path?
Bicycles and pedestrians and anybody, I don't know.
Stroller.
Yeah.
Big wheels.
If you've been on the Capitol Crescent Trail, that's pretty much what you're going to get. It's
yep.
Open to anybody. I consider that something I would use. I'm a recreational bicyclist on the weekend. I don't, use my bike to get to work. I think those guys are a different breed there, but we're trying to accommodate everybody. And I think, so that answers the question. Shared use path, I think they call it side path nowadays, is maybe more common. And again, we'd like to get that at least 10 feet. But again, and I want to remind everybody, please just, let us know what you think on these widths on both the on-road bike lane and the shared use path / bike path, side path. Very important. If we come away with one thing for this meeting, for me, I want to know what you think about that. So if you would indulge me, even if you don't have any opinion on anything else, just comment on that, if you would, please.
Okay, next, who do we need to reach out to request the buried electrical lines? With all the trees around this area, it should be 100% buried.
Yeah, well, that would be me. And then I would coordinate with Pepco. I've done it before. Major effort. We kind of addressed it earlier on, but online comment card, email, let me know your thinking. We're still early enough to make that decision, and coincidentally, we're going through our funding request with the council. We're the early stages of that. We can discuss it within our division if you think it's a viable option. We could ask for it. There's no, we wouldn't know until next May whether the council approved it or not. We could, on our end, we can only simply ask for it. But again, there are other considerations in addition to cost. We have conflicts underground with the existing utilities. We have stormwater management features we have to put in. So we have to give them all a consideration, but again, put it on the comment card and we'll look at it. So.
Okay, with reference to the intersection project, when the Wilson-Bradley intersection is expanded to 3 lanes, will there be adequate shoulder to accommodate bicyclists traveling on Bradley through the intersection?
So as I mentioned, we are providing 5-foot bike lanes on Bradley Boulevard through our project limits.
Okay.
Shoulders along Wilson where we can fit them in, but there aren't specific bike lanes going on Wilson.
Okay. Okay, next question. With the intersection project, is it possible to add a sidewalk on the north side of Wilson Lane from Aberdeen Road to Bradley?
Something we have looked into. You realize that there is a ride-on bus stop that's kind of hanging out in the middle between the 2 intersections. We've looked into the feasibility of adding that sidewalk, and it's would impact right away. So there would have to be right away acquisition, which is why we're kind of limiting to not doing that. We are looking at other avenues to make that bus stop more accessible to pedestrians.
Okay, let's see. The delay at the intersection will be improved by 10 seconds at evening peak. Was a signal control system with camera sensors to detect left turning vehicles considered as an alternate to adding lanes? Would that have less impact?
Right, we're reducing delay at the intersection by adding the lane. And you need the lane because the delay happens when somebody's trying to turn left and the opposing through traffic is preventing them, which then cues back cars who want to actually. So if I was traveling east on Wilson and I wanted to turn left, I'm sitting there waiting for people who are coming west on Wilson to get a gap. That means people behind me are waiting. Having a dedicated left turn lane allows people behind me just to freely flow, therefore reducing the intersection delay. In the future, signal phasing can be done to accommodate left turns based on demand. As I said in our study, we evaluated that and it wasn't warranted. So there's no specific left turn phasing going in. Hence, the need for video detection is not there. So it would defeat the purpose of it.
Okay, great. Regarding the bikeway project, was aggregated data from Strava, Garmin, Google, Apple, etc. used to get a sense of the amount of bike traffic along Bradley Boulevard?
Mark, you were involved in the study phase. I don't know if any of that was available to you at the time.
Probably less or not available at the time, but our study did do I believe it was a Saturday bicycle count. And we do have that data in the project perspectives, which I believe is also on the website still. I guess we could verify that, but it's probably up there.
And I'd sort of chime in, it's more or less anecdotally. The gentleman, I forget his name, from WABA, the bike group, and basically you build it and they will come kind of a thing. You know, I wouldn't want to ride on Bradley either right now, but if you implemented these facilities, then yeah, myself and a lot of other people would, so the numbers would be different. So you've got to look at it that way too. So.
Okay, when the project was designed 10 years ago, there was a survey conducted on the number of mature trees that would be destroyed as a result of the construction. Has the inventory been updated to reflect current conditions? And if so, how many mature trees will need to be removed?
That's yours, Mark.
Yep. So we did do that tree survey in the planning study, and we are definitely planning on doing that again, and we have not done it yet. We want to kind of get our, we're still very, very early in our final design here, and we want to kind of get going a little bit with that, and then we will do a fresh tree survey to figure out current impacts, but we haven't done it yet.
And again, keep going back, a broken record here. Go back to my question: how wide is the shared use path going to be? The bike lanes, you know, we've got to look at the entire cross section of Bradley Boulevard. That'll affect tree impacts and everything else. So once we can nail that down, then we can kind of move forward and better answer some of those kind of questions.
Okay. Actually, I can answer the next one. Shared use is much wider than a sidewalk. Do we have to shovel the entire area? And the answer to that one is no. You only have to shovel 3 feet in width for of the sidewalk. Next question. What was the range of intersection design studied for the Wilson Lane project?
I think you go.
The range, I'm not sure I'm following the question there.
Yeah, he says a widened or blown out intersection for hundreds of feet with a traffic light that does not improve the level of service seems wrong. The design increases the risk through greater crossing exposure of pedestrians and through speeds of cars. please study other designs such as traffic circles that could be a real win-win while moderating top speeds.
I do realize that traffic circles are becoming more and more prominent. However, in this location, it's not feasible, and it would simply require a lot of additional right-of-way. And I know there's a lot of right-of-way out there, but there would be, in order to put in a traffic circle, there would be a lot more needed. So kind of not really an economical viable option.
Okay. Next, how are the drainage ditches going to be maintained?
So that'll be state highway maintained, as it's their road, and that would go for Wilson and Bradley, both projects. So it's up to them to maintain the stormwater facilities and the drainage ditches and inlets and pipes and everything.
Okay. Next, with reference to the bikeway project, how will bicyclists be accommodated during construction?
Good question, Mark. MRT.
I
know you haven't designed it yet, so any thoughts on it though? That
can I call on Jeff, who's been waiting patiently to answer a question? Jeff, this is always a tough one, is maintaining bicycle traffic. That's a struggle, but what are your thoughts on that in general?
Sure. Hi, folks. I'm Jeff Rigner, also at WRA. I'm a colleague of Mark's and Jason's. Although, as John pointed out, the project is not yet designed, so we can't give a lot of specifics yet. A very common way to accommodate bicyclists during construction is to construct a shared use path first. If the site conditions allow that to happen along Bradley Boulevard, that would be an ideal circumstance where people walking and biking would have a safe place to travel outside the construction zone of the roadway. So that could be built first offline while bicyclists continue to ride in the road as they do today. Once the path is done, construction could occur on the road, and bicyclists and pedestrians would maintain their safety.
Okay. Next question. Bradley Boulevard at Ewing Drive has major drainage issues. Will there be any fixes for that in this project?
Mark or Jason?
That outside of our let me
is that beyond the limits, or
it's well beyond our limits. It's a half mile north.
Okay.
So we suggest you call District 3 State Highway Administration. Is that where they would go, Mark?
Yeah, I guess if there's drainage issues, flooding conditions on Bradley Boulevard itself or right immediately adjacent, it would be a something that you'd want to let State Highway know about. I know on their website they do have a like a 311 equivalent on their website, right, Lori? I think they do.
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
And they, Mark, they do confirming with you. They do have an existing closed system there, and this is just a maintenance issue, or what's your understanding at that location?
I'm not too familiar with it. I would suspect it's pretty similar to our condition where there could be a culvert under Ewing Drive.
Okay.
I'm actually looking online now. Yeah, it looks like a lot of the intersections in our corridor. So
okay.
There's inlets and things. So
so unfortunately beyond our scope here.
Okay. Next question. If it's $16 million for the bikeway project now, what about when construction actually starts? Will the price go up? And has this project been funded?
All right, well, I'll address that. The word funded, it's programmed. The 16 million some odd is programmed in a 6-year cycle, budget cycle. Actually, it goes maybe a little into the out years. Yeah, it does. It goes beyond 6. Looks like construction will start. We're talking, like I said, 2025 or July of 2025, which is fiscal 26, and goes for maybe 2.5 years beyond that. The money has not been appropriated. The only money that we've received at DOT is for the design and these engineering services, some of the field services we've seen. We expect that, 2023 and beyond will get a more appropriation for land acquisition and utility relocation, and then ultimately the construction. So that's sort of where we are with it. Could you reread the question? I just lost track. What exactly the?
Sure. They wanted to know if the project had been funded yet, and if due to inflation.
Okay, the inflation component. Yeah. Typically, when we put together these budgets, we put the inflation, or we call escalation, into the in there. So that 16 million some odd. That reflects the future cost of construction. Again, we're going to revisit that this summer. If we get some answers from you folks and we know better of, the more we know, the better we can cost this out. Right now, we're at preliminary plans, and if we widen the shared use path or do something else that isn't on the current plans, and we'll make adjustments for that. Right now, that 16 million is a placeholder for based on our best estimate, based on the information we have right now, and again, we'll update that as we get more information. But that, again, it's several years down the road. We're just looking at getting the design done now, and then and hopefully get this into construction in 2025. So.
Okay, next question is, who will clear the snow from the bikeways? I guess the plows, the county plows?
Or the state highway will plow the road itself, including the bike lanes. And state highway is pretty good about clearing every inch of pavement, shoulders, bike lanes. And then, as discussed earlier, the sidewalk and the shared use path, responsibility of the adjacent property owner or resident to clear at least 3 feet within 24 hours. Yeah.
If we had a separated bikeway, I'm sorry, Lori, just thinking about the maintenance, if we had some kind of a barrier there, does anybody know on my team if state highway has facilities, equipment to clear snow? If we do have something like plastic bollards or a raised curb or some kind of a physical barrier between the vehicular lane and the bike lane.
I'm not really too sure about that answer. I'd have to.
Yeah, I mean, since we're kind of considering, somebody suggested that earlier, and it's worth considering. Obviously, maintenance is always an issue. If they're not capable of maintaining it, then that big consideration there. Just
true.
Okay.
Have to be considered.
Okay. Next question: where has the 2 million so far gone on this project, on the bikeway project?
Mark, you took that, didn't you?
That's right.
Where have the 2 million gone? Well, let's see. Fiscal 20, we haven't, I don't know if they're talking about facility planning, which started way back over 10 years ago. I'm not sure where that number comes from. Certainly, Mark, you and WRA have not billed that much since you've been involved since what, last November? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I've been getting bills or definitely don't add up to 2 million. I've been paying them. I'm not sure where that number comes from.
Okay. I'm just looking for questions through the comments. And everybody, your comments will be forwarded to the project managers. I'll download the chat after the meeting has closed.
Yeah, it's almost 9 now. I don't want to cut anybody off if we're going pretty well here. Lori and my team, if there's anybody that can't stick around for at least another 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, just let me know. And we'll move on without you. But I want to try to get to everybody best we can. So next question, I guess.
Yeah. All right. What is the plan from the engineering firm for all this bike use when it ends at Wilson.
So basically how to transition from this project back to the existing, how I hear
Oh,
that.
okay.
To transition back to the existing condition. So I guess the on-road bike lanes, bicyclists that are using them would go through, you know, if they're, let's say they're heading north through our project and then through the intersection project on those bicycle lanes, and then that would be tapered to blend into the existing shoulders. And so then from there north, bicyclists would, you know, do what they're doing today, I would say. But maybe more importantly is a question about the shared use path and the sidewalk, like how so I guess the key feature of this job is to connect the sidewalks that are on Wilson down to the ones that are on Goldsboro and then on into Bethesda. So it does a great job of connecting continuity to the south, and then to the and also to the north by tying into Wilson. I guess that's how I would say that. But again, from there north, that'll be the end for sidewalks and shared use paths for now until the next phase comes along.
Has the county considered just a sidewalk and some drainage relief? This project seems too elaborate.
Yeah, that's kind of an older question back in facility planning. Mark can probably back me on that. And that's true. You know, we had a petition, you know, but really we like most projects in the county, we kind of fall back on the you know, planning department and the master plan, and that calls for all this stuff. So, you know, ultimately it's probably going to get built unless there's some change. But, you know, we base a lot of what we do on the master plans, and it's as simple as that. You know, and it calls for it in the Bethesda Chevy Chase master plan and the countywide functional bikeways master plan. So you know, that's the reasoning for it. So.
Okay, let's see. A lot of comments. I'm just scrolling to see if there's any additional questions. Although it says I have 137 new messages, so I'm imagining there may be some questions in there.
Yeah. And that's a good way to do it. I was going to suggest, Lori, you know, comments, you know, they can always post them to me and the team, and we can consider them. I'd rather kind of, while we have everybody live here, try to get the questions. And
next, can you not build the shared use path and instead add 2 feet to each of the bike and automobile lanes?
I wish the guy from WABA was on our team. He said it really well. He I forget the terms he used, but he separating the functions. You get the vehicles, you got the you know, the commuter types that use the on-road bike lanes, and then you get the recreational guy. Kind of in simple terms. And I think what comes out of that is safety. It's been a proven way to make things safer. So that would be my response. I don't claim to be a bike expert. I'm a civil engineer by trade. We build things. So some of this is new to me. And Mark, if you've got anybody on your end or that can chime in there.
Yeah, John, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, the purpose of what's proposed for Bradley Boulevard, which is called a dual bikeway, as John mentioned earlier, is to provide accommodation for 2 different types of cyclists. So the bike lanes are for folks who are stronger and more comfortable riding in mixed traffic, are willing to accept the risk associated with that so that they could travel a little bit more quickly, not as fast as the cars, of course, but it's more comfortable for them. The shared use path or side path is for most of the rest of us who are comfortable, more comfortable being separate from traffic, riding at a much slower speed that's much more comfortable to be around people who are walking or pushing strollers or what have you. And the dual bikeway that's been identified in the master plans that John talked about accommodates both of those types of cyclists.
Thank you, Jeff.
Great, thank you. Just reading through the comments here, it seems a lot of the residents feel that pedestrian activated crossing signals should be installed and crosswalks.
And we've noted that, and I've asked Mark to, make sure that we see what we can do about implementing that. I'm not making any promises tonight, just saying we're going to look at it. So, but sounds like a good idea.
Next question. The sidewalk on Wisconsin Avenue between Bradley and Grafton was constructed several years ago and cost MCDOT, or actually Maryland, $1.5 million to improve access and safety. Why does the same objective for the same distance cost taxpayers in the county more than 10 times that amount at $16 million?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody on my team is directly familiar with that particular project. I don't want to try to compare apples and oranges. Obviously, advanced time, things cost more now than they used to, but I don't know I'm not intimate with the different elements of that project, what was involved. Mark, I don't know, you've been involved with this one longer than I have. Do you have any comments on that one, or?
Not familiar, but if it's on Wisconsin Avenue, that road's already pretty well developed. But Bradley Boulevard, as we've stated, it's 100 years old. It's never had any drainage systems to speak of above open section drainage or underground storm drainage. And it has flooding problems. It has shoulders that vary in width, and you'll probably notice the shoulders kind of crumble, because of the lack of drainage. The water's running along the edge of the shoulder. So it's really taking this road into the future from 100 years ago. So it's quite expensive. And then also the cost of moving all these utility poles is a significant.
That's a huge cost, right? Yeah.
And with what we're trying to fit in with the swale to, built to have stormwater management and the path itself, the poles do get impacted. So it's probably just this, it's such a big overhaul to this road. But in order to implement the full master plan, could be causing the escalated cost.
Yeah, and they mentioned, was it 1.5 million? What are the other projects? We're 16, it's 10 times. Well, it's about 8 million for construction, so it's not 10 times.
Sure, yeah.
And so, again, it's hard unless we have it laid out in front of us to provide a proper answer to that depth. But I guess that's all we have for tonight on that one.
Okay. Is there any place in the county where such huge bikeway combination plans cross so many driveways?
Yeah, I've got another one in the works. It's called Seven Locks Road between Montrose Parkway and Tuck. Actually goes down to Bradley. So that would be one. It was kind of similar to this project. It started up some years back, went through facility planning, and then due to funding, lack of funding, it was kind of put on the shelf for a while. It's gained a new life. We're revisiting the segment from Montrose down Seven Locks to Tuckerman, and there you have many driveways, many residents, many places of worship, churches, synagogues, there's several schools. I think that's maybe even more of a challenge. Then on-road parking most of the way. That'll be a challenge too. We have, so the short answer is yes. There's other projects too, but I'm just speaking of my own projects. So it's not unique to Bradley at all.
Okay. Next question, will the written comments be given equal weight to the oral comments, and will they be posted online with the recording? I can answer that. Yes, I can download the chat and send it to our IT person to have it posted as well on the website.
And they'll be given equal consideration, for sure.
All right, sorry, just scrolling through here. Looks like a lot of comments now. Let me see there's any more questions. Actually, while I'm scrolling, let's go ahead and hear from Tancredi Tagliaferri, who has his hand raised.
Marcel, his wife. The people who are suggesting putting barriers on the bike routes, how exactly would those of us who live on Bradley get in and out of our driveways, especially when you have a circular driveway? How would that work?
It would be challenging to add barriers in the application that was described earlier on this road because of the quantity of driveways. So, and then John, you mentioned plastic bollards. Maybe that would be an option, but actual concrete barriers would be a very big challenge and not very likely on this road.
And hard to maintain, probably. We don't know if state highway would allow that.
We don't know if state highway would allow that.
But, we
Okay.
consider
Well,
all
to be
that.
honest, I'm asking the question because, as everybody's talked about speed and pedestrians and all of these things are major concerns, but it's also already difficult to get in and out of our driveways. So, let's also, while we're thinking about all these things, think about those of us who actually live on Bradley Boulevard and the impact all of this is going to have daily on our lives. And when the pandemic is over and you're talking about, starting a project 4 or 5 years from now when we have to go to work. So, there are considerations for those of us that will be directly impacted as this project moves forward.
Absolutely, and that's why we try to reach out to all the design, like I said, is very nuanced. We look at survey, we go out there, look at the land, look at everything. But my team doesn't live there. I don't think anybody lives on Bradley Boulevard. I certainly don't. We'll visit there. We can visit there a lot, but we don't live there. So we look at you as a resource and what you bring to the table, and those are the kind of comments we appreciate. I can't promise we'll do something that you'll find 100% acceptable. Maybe if you take away anything from tonight, you can see what we're up against, trying to balance the different possibilities and the different features. And certainly anybody that lives in this corridor, any stakeholder, we want to hear from you and hopefully work with you to develop something that you can live with, and so again, we haven't gone that far in design, but put it in writing, and best chance of us to, and if need be on any of these, we can come out and take a look. If this is specific, you can email me, say, look at this, you're going in the wrong direction here, John. Come out, take a look at this. No problem. I could come out and meet on site. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Marion Balsam again. Marion?
Did I understand correctly that it'll be the responsibility of the resident to shovel both the shared use path and the bike path?
I believe so, yeah. Definitely the sidewalk, not the bike path. The shared use path, I'll have to check on it because somebody had commented previously that the Capitol Crescent Trail had been maintained by the county. So I can check on the snow removal policy for shared use path.
Gloria, I'm just reading from Chris Conklin and, on a bike, the sidewalk program memo he has, residents are responsible for removing snow and ice on any sidewalk, other walkway, or adjacent to property that the person owns, leases, or manages, including any walkway in the public right-of-way, to provide a pathway wide enough for safe pedestrian and wheelchair use within 24 hours after the end of the precipitation that caused the condition. I don't see where it says 3 feet here, but I'm pretty sure it's just 3 feet. Maybe you can confirm that, Lori. But it sounds like they're responsible for both, the way I read that, but you know.
Because the bike path is the same level as the car path, that would be dangerous to be shoveling the bike path.
No, the bike path you wouldn't shovel because it's in the road.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need to shovel the bike path, but the shared
But
use path,
shared use path is what
yes,
we're.
you would. Yes. Okay, next, we have Barbara Rosenbaum. Barbara?
Yes, this is Barbara's husband again.
Yes.
On this last question, I heard your answer.
I'm sorry, sir, we can't really hear you.
I heard your answer about shoveling the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
If the front of the house fronts on Bradley Boulevard for about 100 feet, and the sidewalk in front of your house is 100 feet long, do you have to share, or do you have to shovel a strip that is 3 feet wide by 100 feet long?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, next back to the chat, we have some more questions. If, excuse me, if the plans were scaled back to a more reasonable scope rather than the elaborate multiple lane $16 million proposal, could the county fund the entire length to Persimmon Tree Road under this one project instead?
Yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely. Mark, what do you think? I mean, doing a cost estimate in your head, I don't.
No, that's a really long distance. That costs a lot, even if you scaled it back significantly. And the problem is, you know, again, with this road not having existing drainage facilities, and a lot of the concern from State Highway, from residents, is the flooding. To try to fix that is where a lot of the budget goes. And the same would be said for all the way up to Persimmon, or I don't know, the whole way, but you know, a lot of the corridor up to Persimmon Tree would have the same issue. So.
Okay, next, has there been consideration of how the proposed plan will affect the big commercial trucks that, for example, carry food to the restaurants in Bethesda?
I guess one thing I would say to that is there have been comments in the past about maybe even considering like 10-foot lanes, but in reality, for a road that carries this much volume and has, you know, as many trucks and buses as it does, 11 foot is the appropriate number, and what we're held to, as Michael said too. So the 11-foot lanes can accommodate, you know, they're plentiful throughout the county, so they can accommodate commercial vehicles in addition to passenger vehicles.
Okay, next we have Michael Katz. Michael, can you unmute?
Yes, hi. First of all, thank you to the team. I've been following this project. I live on Cornish Road, which is right off of Bradley. I'm 4 houses down from the intersection with Bradley on the north side of Bradley. And my backyard is adjacent to 2 properties that are along Bradley on the 5300 block of Bradley. So first of all, I support the project as it stands. The thing that hasn't been discussed too much, we talked a lot about the flooding and the drainage issues at the intersection with Durbin and Old Chester, and the degradation of the roads that are caused by all that drainage stuff. But I also just wanted to weigh in that I get a lot of water, and this affects multiple houses down Bradley. The county's had to do remediation because water sheds from Bradley into the backyards of Cornish, and then it floods basements, it floods people's backyards. So those swales and the drainage remediation along the 5300 block of Bradley are very much needed. And just wanted to weigh in with an additional, in addition to my support for the biking, that drainage is super important.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see, just scrolling for, looking for questions. I'm sorry. Please
Lori, I
bear
think we'll
with
just
me.
take a couple more and we'll just wrap it up here.
Okay.
Maybe 2 more. Your choice.
Let's see. Will the construction
You know,
be
we
done?
remind everybody we're going to be, this will be online tomorrow, and you can certainly chime in then. We'll go through all the comments.
Will the construction be done in sections?
Well, we definitely still have in front of us to develop the construction phasing and maintenance of traffic plan. We also can't tie down the contractor to, you know, too tightly to exactly how they're going to order this. We have to allow them some freedom of, you know, how the order that they're going to build this, but we can and will come up with a sequence of construction during design. So as of now, I don't think we really can have any direct answer on that yet, but it's something we can think about. Do you agree, John?
Yeah, and in addition to that, if people if they go on to the county's OMB website and they take a look at the CIP, I think in the description it calls for a phase 1 and phase 2. I don't know that we're going to pursue that anymore. Originally, they were thinking in the interest of cost, you know, the cost and the money flow, they would build everything except for the shared use path in phase 1, and then phase 2 would be the shared use path. It just doesn't make sense from an engineering and construction point of view. If they still want to pursue that, I'm going to try to talk them out of it. I don't think they're holding on to that anymore. That was back in the day. We've moved this project down the road so many years now. I don't think that's really a consideration in terms of the funding. So, so if anybody does go and look at that and read that, I think you could probably ignore that. So anyway, any more questions there, Lori? Just wrap it up with one more and then you can do your spiel.
Okay. Is there any way to include a pathway on Cornish for the bikes and pedestrians?
Lori, you're part of the sidewalk program. You could go through your, you could.
Well, I mean,
and they can request it. Is that?
They can request a new sidewalk, but
not the bikeway.
But not the bikeway or the or bike lanes in the road. No, we don't actually facilitate that either.
But if they sent you the request, you could again
they
look
can
at
get it to the right
sidewalk,
person. Yeah.
and then you can direct it to the right person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it really comes down to available right away and that kind of thing. Yeah, I think there's a path. I don't know if it's a paper road on Cornish, kind of goes out the back way there, and there's somebody was talking about cut through traffic. So I'm not too familiar with it. Suffice it to say, it's really not included in the scope of this project, you know, but it is close, and it's a county road. So, you know, put the request in, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. All right, great.
Let's just wrap it up, and I think it's been pretty good here. We maybe didn't get to everybody, but again, we're open and we welcome your suggestions. And again, a broken record, but let me know what you think about the dimensional width of the shared use path and the on-road bike lanes. What's your you know, what do you think there? That's what I'm looking for.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I will download the chat and forward all of the additional questions that we didn't get to tonight to the project managers so that they will be able to answer you via email. And of course, if you have any questions that you have not yet thought of or occur to you later, please feel free, again, to email the project managers. You can find their contact information on the project website. And I guess that concludes our meeting. Thank you. Yes.
One thing. I saw a chat fly past about wanting to see the typical section we shared. So maybe we'll put maybe the different dimensions we talked about tonight on the website?
We
Would
can
that be-
also upload the PowerPoint that you shared.
Yeah, okay. We'll do that.
The presentations will be posted online.
You can look at the typical and then help that decide, what kind of widths you'd like. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you
Well,
all.
thanks everyone. Have a lovely evening.
All right. See you.
Bye-bye.
All right.